You know, it's been a pretty long time since I've taken a look at a Sega Genesis game, so let's check out Alien Storm. On first glance, Alien Storm seems to be just another Sega belt scroller, this time with a bit of a sci-fi flair, and on the surface you would be right in assuming that. However, play on a little bit and you'll discover it is a little bit more than just that. For starters, you're not just punching and kicking or hacking and slashing. The heroes in this game, the Alien Busters, yeah, that's actually what they're calling them, are armed with some high-tech weaponry in order to take on these monstrous extraterrestrials. Things get even more interesting as you play the game a little, as you encounter some rail shooter type stages where you blast through a variety of environments, including an electronics store, a supermarket, and a laboratory. It may sound pretty good so far, and if belt scrolling or rail shooting aren't enough, there's also some sections of the game where you are running around shooting aliens and dodging obstacles. You'd think that all these elements would make for a pretty tasty stew, and they do on paper. But I feel that the game falls kind of short in the execution. There's something about the game that just seems rather bland in the overall presentation. The visual design, for the most part, it is fairly generic, and the backgrounds you do battle in aren't anything you really haven't seen before in a large number of games. The alien designs are all kind of neat, but I think they're kind of lacking as well, like I've seen it all before elsewhere. Maybe in 1991 things might have looked a little bit more interesting, however, nowadays it just seems rather underwhelming. The music and sound are a similar story. There's a certain Sega Genesis sound which can either be regarded as a good thing or a bad thing depending on the game and how it utilizes the sound capabilities of the console. And in this game, unfortunately, it does fall on the bad end of the spectrum. Much of the music is a lot of noise. To a point, it kind of fits that sci-fi kind of feeling, and when I've heard of the arcade soundtrack, it's not too different there either. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of neat ideas going on here, and the gameplay is fairly strong. It took me a while to get used to the controls of the game. It's a little strange to have belt-scrolling gameplay without a jump button. You can double-tap a direction to dash like in Golden Axe, and you can do a jump from there, but instead of a dedicated jump button, you have one for an evasive roll, which can be very useful when aliens surround you. You can also attack off a dash or a roll, which is quite useful, and in the running segments, you do have the ability to jump with the roll button. There's a bit of a different kind of challenge to Alien Storm, not just with the level variety, but you have to manage your energy, as your Alien Buster weaponry requires energy. The same energy is responsible for your special attacks. If you do run out of energy, your blaster is only good to whack enemies with, and that's definitely not as effective. You can find refills to your energy in the rail shooter segments and occasionally in the belt scrollers as well, but they're not all that plentiful, so it may be wise to rely on your rolling attack whenever possible. The Genesis version of the game only gives you 1 life per continue and only 3 continues to play with, which is a little bit unforgiving compared to Golden Axe and other games of this ilk. You'll notice a lot of reviewers comparing this game to Golden Axe, another belt-scrolling arcade game from Sega, and that one's much better known and loved. There are a lot of similarities between the two, but that's not much of a surprise seeing that both games were developed by Sega AM1, the team that made a large number of the classic arcade titles for Sega. Some examples of these similarities include that they both have 3 characters in both games, belt-scrolling action in both games, screen-clearing special attacks in both games, and I'm sure I could go on from there, but I don't feel it's all that necessary. Sega AM1 did have some pretty neat ideas with this game. The gameplay variety is rather ambitious over the straightforward shooter or beat-em-up ideas, and the Genesis version is actually very faithful to the arcade. There's only a little bit of content that is missing, just a couple cutscenes if I'm not mistaken, and the game itself is just a product of its time, and if you wanted to check it out for yourself, it is not a hard game to get your hands on. It's on a ton of compilations like Sonic's Ultimate Genesis and others. I know it's on the more recent one for the current generation consoles as well. So if you wanted to check it out, it's very, very easy to do so, and just because I think it falls a bit short, you might think otherwise, so, you know, take my opinions with a grain of salt. Now let me know what you think. How does Alien Storm rate to you? Is it as good as Golden Axe or other arcade classics from Sega? Heck, what are your favorite Sega arcade classics? I'd love to hear what you think. Leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.